February was a full reading month for me. I read 12 books across urban fiction, historical fiction, Christian fiction, even a little bit of horror fantasy. Fantasy horror, horror fantasy. You know what I mean. Anyways, my name is Raquel. This is where we come to celebrate and explore Black books. If this speaks to you, subscribe. Let's get into it. So the first I'm going to start out with the four urban fiction books that I read. So I read Straight Out of Dade County by Diamond Johnson. This is book 2 in a 3-book series. I read Smoke by Kimberly Brown, which is book 3 in the Dillinger series. I read Forever Certified by Shaw, which is the second part of Certified Pressure and the second book in Forever Certified, and Respectfully Yours by Siobhan Latrice. So, Straight Out of Dade County and uh, the Dillinger series, I will wrap them up once I'm finished with the series. So I only need to read one more Straight Out of Dade County, and Smoke, I need to read Maceo. I've already read Smoke. I just need to read Maceo, and so we'll get back to those maybe in March. Um, Forever Certified and Respectfully Kennedy, I have already talked about in a previous video, but I realized that I probably never really told you what the books were about. I was just so hyped about these two books. So, Forever Certified is about this guy and this girl, Kalo and Tony. They're married. He is having a difficult time. He's having he's talking to himself in the middle of the night. He is, he goes off just kapow, almost for no reason. And it's wearing on her. It's too much. She has to keep it in. She doesn't want to really go outside the family and let them know. And so that's book 1. Book 2, he's gotten himself into a huge mess, and because he nobody really knows except for his wife and his father what's going on. uh he his Tony's got to find a way to get him out of this mess, and she's got to get him some help. And so that's what book 2 is about. I can't wait to see what book 3 is about. Hopefully it's about getting him some help and figuring out how to get him out of this mess. Then we have Respectfully Kennedy. I want to make this as short a video as possible, which is why I am talking so fast. Respectfully Kennedy. I enjoyed this book so much. Respectfully Kennedy is about Kennedy and Relic. Relic is trying to set up a legacy for his family. He has, I believe it's 4 brothers and 2 cousins. All of them, or most of them, have wives and children. And he is trying to set up a legacy for his family in case something happens to him. He also has a son that he just found out about. He pulls Kennedy in order to help him um, build this legacy. So they've got to be strategic. They've got to do some things. And, Kennedy is the best person for this. He calls her Loren, and Loren means queen. And she embodies that 100%, which is why I love her so much. She's strategic. She don't play no games. She's got to know what's coming. And if you know anything about chess, the queen is a protector, and she sets up the attack for the king. And Relic would be considered the king. And so they are working together, but they're also playing a game with each other, this mind game about kind of really being together, because they are together, but they aren't. They're together, but emotionally they are not connected. They do everything except for the emotions. And so that is a game between the two of them. And when I tell you at the end of the book, the way Kennedy played that hand, it was nothing but queen activity. So if you have not read this series, I suggest you get into it. Next, we're going to get into the four historical fiction that I read. So I read The Seven Daughters of Dupree by Nakia Elise. I believe her last name is Williams. With Love from Harlem by Rashonda Tate. And By Her Own Design by Piper Hughley. And Inharmonious by Tammy Huff. So The Seven Daughters of Dupree, I have talked about in a different video. It is about seven generations of women and the cycles that they go through, those generational things that happen and how they trickle down and where it is starting to end, and they break through that. Um, with Love from Harlem is a story that I feel like is reminiscent of many other stories. It is about a young lady in her early 20s who has this beautiful, bright future ahead of her as a singer, I believe a jazz singer. A man comes along, distracts her on her path. She gets with him, marries him. He mistreats her. All the while, she's got his back during his political career. The man is Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who is a reverend, pastor, priest, or whatever the his title is, turned politician, and she backs him up while he mistreats her until eventually she takes back her power and moves on. And so I feel like I've heard that story. It wasn't that it was a bad story. I'm not saying that I did not like the story. I'm just saying that underneath, I feel like I've heard that story many times before. The next book is By Her Own Design, which I really enjoyed. It's by Piper Hughley. It is about a lady named Ann Lowe. So Ann Lowe is a real person who grew up with her mother and her grandmother. Her mother and her grandmother are seamstresses, and they only make dresses for the high society, prominent white people in Alabama. um, Anne grows up as, under them, their apprentice. They are teaching her, but they don't want her to, you know, help them with their work. That gives her the idea that she wants to be an adult. She also, in her tweens, wants to kind of find out who her dad is. This man comes around, tricks her, tells her he knows who her dad is, and he probably does know who her dad is, but he is a tailor. And he starts to do things for her. And, he's a grown man, so it doesn't, take a whole lot to impress a 13-year-old girl. Tricks her into marrying her and then turns her basically into his worker. He wants her to sew for him, which she winds up doing for many years. Then she winds up being able to go back and sew with her mother and her grandmother, every once in a while when they need help or whatever. And then eventually, this lady comes to her, really likes what she has on, wants to know who sewed her dress because she needs somebody to help her in her house in Florida. She eventually tells the lady that it was her. She can do it, which is in Florida, and they're in Alabama. She can do it, but she has a son, and she needs to bring her son, and she needs to go now. The lady sees the distress in her and goes ahead and sends her to Florida, so she is able to then get away from her crazy, abusive, uh, I could call him a bunch of names, but I'm gonna leave it there. To Florida. She gets there. The woman is really nice. She sends her to school. And as she comes back, she becomes the person who actually made the wedding dress for Jackie Kennedy. And she, continues on her sewing journey. She had this thing where she would only sew for prominent people. She knew her worth and she would not sew anything for, just a regular person. even if they had the money. She wanted the status. There was one thing in the book that triggered me. She called her and her mother and her grandmother good Negroes. And it triggered me because there is this thing called the what's it called? The model citizen. And so the model citizen is when Asian people come to America, they model themselves after white people. And so they're called the model citizens. And so it kind of triggered me because it also reminded me of, like, back during slavery time, you had a uh, some black people would do certain things. They would do whatever, so that they could get extra food or a bed to sleep in, or, to be in the house, not out in the sun, just different little perks, right? So they would tell that Beulah could read, or that, a group was running away, or, just different things like that, things that was very important to the survival of Black people, that it be kept a secret. And so when she said that she was a good Negro, it made me wonder if that's the type of people her and her mother and her grandmother were. Just a little bit of insight of what goes on inside my head. That's all. Anyways, the last book in historical fiction is Inharmonious. This was a great book. I enjoyed it so much. My husband and I read this together, and we took twice as long to read the book because we couldn't stop talking during the time that we were actually reading. We keep going back and forth, asking each other questions, telling each other our thoughts. It was a great read, partially because um, well, of course, because of the book, but also because we enjoyed the books together. Anyways, so it is about this lady. She has two kids, a boy and a girl. The boy is very fair skinned. He can pass. Uh, he has three friends. One of his friends lived with them because he lost his family. So at 16, he came to live with them. Then he has another friend whose name is Lee. The daughter has a crush on him. And then he has another friend, uh, Jacob, Joseph, something. So there is Benny, Lee, Roscoe, and that J boy, Jacob or Joseph or whatever his name is. So when Benny is young, he does pass, but only when he needs to, when it is very important, like for a purpose. Um, so years go by, and now World War II is starting. They are having this huge conversation um, on whether or not they should join the war or wait until they're drafted. So this is like a Black community conversation. So part of the Black community says, I want to go to the war. This is my country. I lived here. I helped build it. So I want to be in the war. The other part of the Black people say, it's their war. They're white. Let them go fight it. They ain't, they mistreated me. Now you want my help? It's that kind of vibe. So they do that. Eventually, the four guys do wind up going to war. Um, Benny, who can pass, actually goes to war on the white side by accident. He doesn't pass, they mistake him for white. The others go on the black side. Now, Benny going into the war on the white side, he is experiencing something that is, you know, out of his reach, that he never thought he would experience for more than a couple minutes. But now he is building relationships with these people. He is sleeping with them, eating with them, and starting to think, well, you know what? They aren't that bad after all, right? So then the black guys, they go to Germany. And when they get to Germany, they experience something different. There is no whites only or coloreds only bathroom, water fountain, go in the back door. There's none of that. You could just go in wherever you go and buy what you're going to buy and leave. So there's this one incident where who is it? Roscoe goes into a bar and he sits down to have a drink. Now, he is waiting for them not to serve him, waiting for them to, all of these things, but they never come about. Some white soldiers come into the bar and they are being very rude and disrespectful to Roscoe. The Germans tell them Pontypool, Germany. I was just trying to make sure it was Germany. They were in Pontypool, Germany. So yes, they're German. So they're like, no, you're being rude and disrespectful. You get out. He can stay. As a matter of fact, we like black people. And so that is the kind of treatment they experience after they do their I want to say 4 years because I think that's the standard, but I don't know it's 4 years, whatever amount of time, and they are ready to come back home. They are all feeling some trepidation because, like, the things that I'm like, aside from being in the military and being shot at, where they were and how they're being treated is much better than coming back to America. They come back to America, and now this is where things start to happen. Um, they are this like night and day. They have some stuff going on, and I'm going to end it right there. But it is truly very, very interesting. I enjoyed this book so much, and I was so happy to have read it. Next, we're going to get into my Christian fiction, which is called Something Good by Vanessa Miller. My husband and I read this one together as well. It's about this white lady who is rich and she is driving. She has an emergency and she is trying to look at a text while she's driving. She winds up having an accident and hitting this young black boy. Well, he's a young adult in college, maybe his second year in college, so maybe 19, 20 years old. So he had prospects of playing professional football, or he was in college. So who knows? He could have been or did anything. But now that he's been hit by this car, he can't do any of that. So it's going to cause him some mental anguish, emotional and physical. Uh, the problem is not that she hit him, because she acknowledges that, but she is married to a rich man who is trying to sell his company. And if this gets out, it's going to interfere with him selling this company. So he wants to keep it hush hush. He keeps pushing back the date. It causes them some financial turmoil in addition to all of the other turmoil. There's also a young girl, can't remember her name, but she has a baby and her mother is mentally ill. And so she's lived under her mother, who's mentally ill, in poverty, always being evicted, never having enough food, all of these different things. She has this baby. She gets out on her own. She doesn't want to live like this. She's going to do better for her baby. But why does the same things keep happening? And then the lady who hit the boy, whose name is John John, her mother is mentally ill. And so that's how they connect. But everybody is going to be interconnected in this story. And it is Christian fiction, so it is about faith and forgiveness. I enjoyed it. It was my second time reading it. So yeah. And then the next book was On Sunday, She Picked Flowers by Yaya Schofield. I enjoyed this book so much. I already talked about it, but it is about a lady who lives in this very dysfunctional family. She leaves the family, goes, lives in the forest, in this haunted house, I guess you could say. And then there is a presence there at this haunted house, and she's got to deal with that. Once she kind of works through that a bit, she goes back home because she's got to go back to where it all started so she can get her head together. And I loved this story. It was my first fantasy. I loved it. I cannot wait to get into another one similar to that. And then last but not least is Dapper Dan. I read Dapper Dan, which is by Daniel R. Day. Dapper Dan is this man in Harlem who either makes clothes or used to make clothes for drug dealers. He would make these original custom suits with all types of high end brands on the suit. So it could be like a jacket made, custom made with Gucci on it or Louis Vuitton or Fendi or, whatever the thing is. And so it's about his life. And so he starts out as a young boy, I want to say somewhere between 7 and 9, of shooting dice and playing cards or just gambling, really, was his life. His family was. His father was in and out, his mother was an alcoholic, and so that kind of, you know plays into him being a gambler all his life. It wasn't until he was, oh, I want to say in mid age, maybe 40s or something, did he even start to get into his own business, where he started to sell furs, and that transferred over into making these custom clothes. Really very interesting book. I totally enjoyed it. I enjoyed all of these books, some more than others, but I still enjoyed all of them. So I realized this month that a lot of urban fiction leans into the fairy tale of being saved. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Kennedy felt different to me. She wasn't waiting to be rescued. She was really strong when love entered the picture, and that really stayed with me. Like, I blown away by this book. I loved it. So if I had to describe February in one word, it would be variety. I read 12 books across genres, and what really stood out, not just the genre shift, but the different ways and strength showed up. There was strength in, on Sunday, I picked flowers. Um, Inharmonious. I mean, there's strength everywhere, but Kennedy's strength was on the surface. You didn't have to look for it. You could see it out there, right out there. And in on Sunday, I picked flowers. She started out weak, but eventually found her strength. These were all very good books. I would recommend it. And what I would say is, what book stuck with you in the month of February? Even if it wasn't a book, if you could sum up all the books you read in the month of February and give it one word, what would that one word be? I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time.